Welcome to the 26th episode of the Nerdom and Other Nonsense Anime Podcast. Today we're going over the summer 2017 season's 8th week of shows. My name is Bcom, and I need to watch Rick and Morty so I can do one-liners with Leo, such as, I'm going to need you to take your opinion and shove it way up your butthole. Put it way up inside there as far as it can fit. Also with me is Leo.
Oh yes, perfectly appropriate for a podcast that has a lot of opinions and whatnot, so...
Especially your opinions. Oh, shit.
Oh, yeah, shit. So, Bcom, how about you show me what you got?
Okay, I will do that. Starting on Sundays, I've got Centaur no Naomi, also known as A Centaur's Life, which every week we get to recite the title of the episodes, my favorite part. Episode 8, Mental Strength might be the biggest reason one wins a serious competition / the uncertainty of what one believes in, or so I absurdly mumble.
Just that one word in there, absurdly. I was like, yeah. That describes your titles.
Yeah, it's insane. All right, this episode starts with Hime practicing Yabusame, which is like Japanese mounted archery, except in this case, she's both the horse and the mounted archer all at once, because she's a centaur. So
and
she's
it would
practicing...
be discriminatory to ride her.
Yeah.
Wait, does this world still have horses too?
I don't know. I guess it probably would.
Yeah,
I forget if they've mentioned that at some point, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just supposed to be a copy of ours, but people are different.
So she's practicing with this white-haired, like younger centaur who's like still in middle school named Ayaka Wakamaki, and she views Hime as her like main archery rival and gets really annoyed that Hime just wants to treat her like nicely and politely, and she's kind of oblivious about their rivalry. So it turns out that Ayaka always loses her nerves when it comes to competition time, and Hime has tried to calm her down in the past, but it's always kind of backfired. But Kyoko is like whispering a plan in Hime's ear about how she could maybe calm Ayaka down the next time. So after that, we learn that Yabusame became this popular thing among centaurs as a way to meet a marriage partner, because having like the wealth to own your own archery range and to practice on, and like just being athletic and healthy enough to do it, meant that you were probably like a desirable marriage partner. So there's like a lot of like that stuff going on behind the scenes. And when they show up for the competition, we see like a bunch of centaurs like hanging together like couples and stuff. And then Shino is there, like Hime's like little like kindergarten aged like cousin or whatever, niece. And like I'd like to point out, so Shino introduces her friend from kindergarten. I don't think we knew for a fact that Shino was in kindergarten before, but it's confirmed here because she's like, hey, it's my friend from kindergarten. So fast, like rewind to last episode, we spent 32 seconds watching a kindergartner getting into her fucking bathing suit.
Starting off completely butt-ass naked, yes.
As you can tell, I'm totally over that. All right, let's move on. So, the competition starts, and of course, Hime does very well. She's really good. And then it's Ayaka's turn, but before she goes, Hime takes Kyoko's advice and goes up to her and says, I want to make a bet. If I lose, I'll go on a date with you, Ayaka. And so Ayaka is, like, flustered as hell after that, because she has a huge crush on Hime, even if it's, like, sort of as like a senpai and less as like I want to date her. But anyway, she miraculously actually pulls herself together. I thought she would just like completely fall over herself, but she's like, no, this date is really important. I need to actually win. So she does. She wins, and they do end up on that date. And that's basically, they just go shopping, and that's where the first half of the episode ends. It's kind of like a... just
made me think that, damn, internet exists. Centaur lesbians are probably a fucking thing.
Yeah, I would guess so. I mean, they're in this show, Leo, if you have forgotten already.
Yeah, like I'm just like, wait, how would that work? Wait, I don't want to know. Stop thinking about it.
Remember, those weren't centaur lesbians. I'm sure there will be centaur lesbians in this show at some point. Like, that has to happen.
I'm saying it's probably has to exist on the internet.
Yeah, this is true. And knowing the internet, it's probably between Hime and Shino because she's in kindergarten. So, let's move on now. While you get depressed.
God,
about
I wasn't
that.
going to go that dark and depraved.
Well,
you go there by yourself.
Internet. The internet went there. It wasn't me. All right. So the second half of the episode starts out with these two mermen guys who are like really excited because they got their hands on this porn mag from like the landlocked areas of the country that have like the other types of animal girls, basically. And then like a couple mermaids swim up to them, are like, "Why are you looking at that?" And like they shouldn't need it apparently, because all these mermaids, when nobody else is around, they just swim around with their breasts out like all the time. So they're just like swimming around, and she's like, "Look, I got breasts," and the guy's like, "Yeah, your breasts, they don't matter. Like they're not covered. Like there's no mystery there. So there's like no value to your breasts." And then, but after that, oh, by the way, all throughout this scene, like everything is kind of censored with like streaks of white light, like you see in a lot of like ecchi shows.
Perfectly placed.
I'm sure the Blu-rays will have them in their full glory, so wait for those. And then, so this other mermaid girl swims up, though, and she looks to me like a little younger than the first two. She also has smaller breasts than the first two, and the two mermen guys actually get really excited about seeing her. Her name is Eri, and like she swims away eventually, and the girls ask like, why are you like interested in her breasts? And they're like, well, she didn't grow up in the water. She grew up on land. And so she's like not accustomed to having her breasts out all the time. So like she's really embarrassed about showing her breasts. And that makes it hot. And I was like, oh, God damn it.
Well, there is a bit of truth to that. I mean, if it's if something so easily available to you, then you tend to get bored of it. But if it's something you have to work towards, or it's kind of out of reach or rare, it suddenly has more value to it.
I agree. Yeah. Like
so
there's a good philosophy behind this.
Yeah. I mean, they probably didn't do it in the best fashion possible, but there is. Yeah.
So apparently Eri, that mermaid girl, is an idol, and she's going to sing as part of this ritual song celebration for like this sea god Tagon, who represents the health of the ocean and like the fortune of the merpeople's village or whatever. And so there's actually this large crowd gathering on this beach of like all sorts of like monster people, not just like mermaids, but like all sorts of people come to see this. And like she's swimming out there with like this old mermaid man, and she's complaining to him about like sexually harassing her because this is an anime. And he doesn't really get that though, because he wasn't raised on land, and he finds like their customs to be like really strict. He finds it to be very strict not to be able to make jokes about like the naked little girl next to you. So anyway, Eri begins to sing, and the writers of the show. The writers of the show decided her song didn't actually need any lyrics. Just one lyric to be precise, which is la 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 la, repeated over and over again. So her song gets like the approval of these dolphins, but after that, something weird happens, which they didn't expect, which like it raises this giant quote unquote god Tagon out of the water. He's like a huge, like, I don't know, fish monster, maybe like a kappa. I don't know what kappas look like, something like that. And it's like they weren't expecting that, because like their actual god is just like this stone statue that sits in this little cove off the coast. But like this is like an actual like representation of that. So Eri and the men are like, let's get the hell out of here. They like swim back to shore, wondering what that was. And then there's like a brief montage, and you see like the things that like the huge Tagon thing swim back out to a boat in the middle of the sea. And it's like a research ship for like the Antarctican snake people. And like you see one of the snake people come out of Tagon. So it seems like they were like messing around a little bit with the mermen, or like the mermaids, and like to see like how they would react if their god came to life. It seems like it was like a research experiment. That's what I got out of it.
Yeah, anyway. I totally got research vessel.
Yeah. So
what their intent was, I have no idea.
So the girls asked Tama if she believes that gods really exists, the angel girl Tama. And Tama has a brief battle in her head, like between her rational side and her practical side. Because her rational side's like, well, there's probably no god. But then like she's like, where do you get your money from, honey? And it's like, we know from previous episodes that she makes income from like exorcising demons and stuff because people believe in the occult. And so that side wins out. And she's like, of course gods are real, girls. So that was pretty funny. And then at the end of the episode, there was a scene that really pissed me off for no real reason. Sue-chan, who is Tama's little angel girl sister, is playing Othello with like a ghost girl again, because her dad comes out and is like, hey, like, are you playing alone again? She's like, no, I'm playing with my friend. And he's like, oh, well, there's nobody there. And then he's like, okay, honey, and goes back inside. But okay, the thing that pissed me off is Sue-chan, when she's talking to the ghost girl, the only word that she says is mew, mew. But like, as soon as her dad comes out, she speaks like totally normal English. So she's capable of saying more than mew. She can totally speak in like full sentences to this girl, but they just have her saying mew. Sorry, I'll stop saying it. And it just really annoys me. It's like, I don't know. It's like, yes, it's for cuteness fan service, but it's just
that's all I was going to say. It's just for cute stuff.
Yeah, I don't know.
But and also, like, just interestingly, she's a blend of a cat and an angel, because she's got the angel wings, but she's got droopy cat ears.
Oh, that makes sense. Because her dad is like a cat guy.
Yeah. And so their mother was obviously an angel, since the older sister is an angel. And also our pink-haired mermaid with the petite-sized boobies earlier had the tail of the mermaids, but then she had like the goat horns.
Yeah, she did. So maybe that explains why she was raised on land. Like she.
Yeah. So like, I guess they're half breeds, but supposedly they're really rare. But like, Hime has two different parents, and she takes 100% after her mother. So none of her dad's physical traits. I mean, I don't know how the rules of the world work on this subject. So
Centaur genes are strong. They're strong. They're they're not recessive. I don't know. I guess that's how it could work. But yeah, I would just say the show is kind of getting dumber and dumber at this point. Like, it's been a long time since anything really interesting happened with the world building part, which I liked for a long time. And it's just been getting more and more fan servicey. So I guess that's what I would expect from the show going forward now.
Yeah, you actually surprised me when you didn't drop this mid-season.
Yeah, I came close, but I was like, I don't know. I don't want to watch Recreators. It's like, I don't want to force Leo to watch Recreators.
Was that your potential replacement?
Yeah, because I think the last arc is going to be really fun.
Wrong with you?
The last arc is interesting of Recreators. But I don't know. It's just, it burned its bridges long ago. So, should we move on?
Please.
Okay, so Princess Principal, episode 8 is called Ripper Dipper.
Real quick, I woke up this morning, and for whatever random reason, I had the ED stuck in my head for the first half of the day, and I was totally okay with that.
That's funny.
Because I like the OP and the ED on this.
Yeah, they're both good. Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to put that out there. It's just interesting. I'm like, just humming to myself. I'm like, why is it stuck in my head? I didn't even watch it yesterday.
Sometimes that just happens. Your brain just loads the wrong file in the morning, and then it's stuck in your head.
I mean, every song that's been stuck in my head has usually been annoying, and this one was very much welcomed. So
that's a pleasant surprise. Yeah. All right, so this is a pretty interesting episode. So it starts off with Ange. She was sitting in a public park at an easel and canvas, and she's like drawing a detailed sketch of this like beautiful public building in front of her. And she spots like she spots a little street urchin girl sneaking up to two men trying to steal one of their briefcases. And the man like catches this little girl and then just like kicks the living shit out of her to get her to stop, and then like spits on her motionless body. It was pretty harsh.
It was brutal.
And Ange like says to herself, "It's not a kind country we live in, is it?" Like she's thinking to herself. So it turns out a man named Lord O'Reilly has been meeting with someone in secret at the building that Ange was sketching. And the girl's objective...
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Oh, God, I've heard that commercial.
I couldn't help myself. Sorry to interrupt this, listeners. Bcom, you may resume.
Overlords. Okay. The girl's objective is to find out who O'Reilly has been meeting with in secret. So Ange is going to be staking out the entrance from her point of view in the park. And there's another room like directly across from O'Reilly's apartment where they can see in. It's on the other side of the block. And the princess volunteers to be the one in the stakeout room. And Ange is like, no, I don't want you to do that. It's like too dangerous to go outside. But she's like, no, I've been cooped up with like all this business and stuff. I just need to get outside for once. And then she reluctantly agrees as long as she promises not to leave her post. And like, Chise and Dorothy are gonna, and Beatrice are going to be like subbing in for them at like nighttime anyway. So Beatrice is like in the setup, like in the stakeout room, like setting up. And she's asking Dorothy like, well, why do you think Ange can never say no to the princess? And Dorothy jokes like maybe she can't say no to somebody with her own face. So, and Beatrice like yells at her to be serious about it. But like we're gonna learn more about their backstory going forward.
Loved it.
Yeah,
loved the backstory.
That little urchin girl comes back. She gets kicked again, and Ange like sees something from her own past in this little girl, and gives her some pickpocketing tips. She tells her like, come from the front next time. Don't come from behind. There's ways to create blind spots from in front too. So anyway, moving on. Ange and the princess like discuss their past a little bit. They're talking about how they used to swap clothes to trick Mrs. Crawford, which I assume was like one of their maids or nannies, and like
it's like a tutor or something.
Yeah. They played piano duets together and they held their own little fashion shows. And like in the past, Princess Ange, who is the princess now, asks Charlotte, who is called Ange now. That's going to be confusing for the rest of this review. Why she refers to her as the princess, when in reality, she's not actually the true princess. Actually, this is still in the present. God, I'm messing it up myself. Dun. And Charlotte, or Ange, insists that she only says it really out of respect and not sarcastically. Because, like, Princess Ange, who is not actually a princess, they swap places, feels that she doesn't deserve that title, but Charlotte thinks she does, and we'll find out why. For some reason, after this, we see this brief scene of Chise hanging upside down by her legs from a tree branch to surveil the building at night, like a vampire.
She's a vampire, dude. I saw that. My first note was Chise is a part vampire.
And every time we see her for like the rest of this episode, like she's doing her surveillance and she's just hanging upside down like a vampire bat. It's kind of funny. So yeah, the street urchin comes back and approaches Ange the next day. She's got a smile on her face this time and a basket of flowers. And we see that she's taken Ange's advice to heart, and she cut like a little hole in the front of the flower basket. And there's like a little cloth flap there that she can stick her hand through and like pickpocket people without like knowing. They just think she's a random flower girl, but she's actually stealing from them. So she's very happy about that. She tells Ange her name is Julie, and Ange lies and says, my name is Chloe. Anyway, so there's like a short montage after that. All the girls perform their various duties. Princess and Ange keep switching off identities. And Dorothy even explains to some students that Ange is sick, like to explain her weird disappearances during the day. And Chise continues to hang like a bat. Julie then asks Ange to tell her like more stories about the Black Lizard planet where she's supposedly from. And this is where this show gets interesting. So Ange offers to tell her the story of the princess and the pickpocket, which is very clearly her own backstory. So she explains that when Ange was the young Princess Charlotte growing up, she kind of hated her life in the palace because she was constantly being forced to study various things that princesses have to know, like horseback riding and like history and all that stuff. And one day, as she was running away from palace guards, she spotted this pathway through the walls of the castle, like a little place where you can get through to the town. And when she looked through it, she saw a girl on the other side who looked exactly like her. And they both like fell down in surprise. But it turned out that was Ange, the original Ange, who is now the princess in the present time. And so they became fast friends, and like they did all the things they said they did. Like Charlotte taught Ange how to read and write, and like fed her like really good food, and like dressed her in like clothing that like was royal and stuff, and they switched clothes and they played around. They played all these like practical jokes on the people taking care of them, because like Charlotte would run down a hallway and turn a corner, and then Ange would come up from behind and be like, I'm over here at the other end of the hallway, and they would be like, what the fuck is going on? It's pretty scary, actually, if you think about it. So Chise is speaking with the princess back in real time, and telling her that she's like worthy of her respect because she's such a hard worker, and like when she's practicing dancing and other things, she looks like she's punishing herself. And like, oh wait, I just skipped a lot. God damn it.
Whoa, what'd you do?
I skipped the whole paragraph. So, okay. Basically there's before I get to that part with Chise talking, Charlotte like decides I want to switch places with Ange, so I can get a sense of what the outside world is like. So she does do that. She goes outside the castle walls and leaves Ange to be the princess, like inside the walls. And as soon as she gets outside, she sees like, wow, this world is way uglier than I thought. And like as soon as she gets out there, like some guy recognizes her as Ange and is like, you weren't doing your job, and like throws her like really hard against like a brick wall and says like, you better show up on time for work tomorrow and stuff like that. And yeah, like we learn basically through the rest of the episode that as soon as they switched places, like for good, as like soon as like Charlotte decided she switched places, like a revolution began. And so like the castle got like lit on fire, and they were both separated. Like Charlotte came running back, and she was able to find Ange, and she was like, I've learned so much from like just one day, like walking in your shoes, basically. But like they get separated again because the castle is like on fire, and then like the ground crumbles underneath Charlotte and she falls down, and then the castle guards find Ange, and they're like, and she's like, I'm not the princess, but they're like, oh, you must have had like a rough time, and they just kind of like smuggle her away. And like from that point on, they really couldn't switch places for the whole time. So basically what happens is that like Ange is forced to learn how to become like the princess, and it's like in this time of like tumultuous conflict where if she makes one slip up, like they'll kill her, basically, is what they're like, what the narrative insinuates is that like, oh, if they sense that she's not the real princess or she's not representing their country well, like somebody will take advantage of that and like either kill her or have her like sent to prison or something. So she had to be basically perfect. She had to learn like 9 languages. She became like the country's like top pianists and like all this other stuff. And so back in modern time, like this is all still going through like now Ange, or like the former Charlotte's head, as she's thinking about what's going on. So basically back in modern time, like the girl's target makes an appearance at the building, and she's hiding her face with a veil so they can't make out who she is. But the urchin girl, Julie, is watching Ange closely and sees what she's after. So she runs up to this woman to try to pickpocket her and ends up like knocking her back a little bit. And the veil like comes off her face just momentarily, long enough for Ange to recognize her as the spy from the Duke of Normandy named Gazelle. And Ange goes to find Julie to like sort of, she tells like Chise or somebody that's to destroy the evidence. But she finds Julie about to be punished by a man who she's basically an indentured child servant to. And Ange like feels for her because she lived a hard life when she was outside the palace. And it's like she uses her sea ball to like, you know, affect gravity and like throw this guy around. And the children are like, you know, you beat him for now, but he's going to come back. He's going to treat us even worse. And she's like, okay, you can go to this Stanford Hill orphanage for help. And then Ange talks to Julie and just thanks her for helping with the veiled woman. But before Ange leaves, like, yeah, Julie asks for like the end of the pickpocket girl story. And yeah, it's like, it was the story of like Ange just like learning how to become a princess and like all of the hardships she's been through, like vomiting in the bathroom while she's like trying to like hold her shit together, all that stuff. And at the end, like we see the princess speaking with Lord O'Reilly at the end of like one of her piano performances, and asking how Inspector Flint is doing. That's Gazelle, because she's found him out, and she warns O'Reilly that like the woman he's meeting with works for the Duke of Normandy, and all of her talk of like defection is a trap. But if he really wants to defect, the princess tells him she can take care of it. And he's like, who the hell are you? And she's like, I'm just a spy. And so at the last scene, Princess is speaking with Ange in the present as she plays the piano. And Ange tells her, like, you've truly become a princess because, like, when I asked you if you wanted to, when we met again finally, and I asked you to run away, you said, no, I want to, like, save the country. So, like, Ange sees that the princess has become more of, like, a true princess than she ever was, basically. And then they play a piano duet and remember old times. And you see like the camera shot go back and forth between the present and like the past when they were just two little girls doing the same thing. And it's kind of like they've switched places because the princess is now like the piano master, whereas like Charlotte was the one teaching her how to play piano as a little kid. And it's a pretty cool thing. I don't know. What'd you think of this episode, Leo?
I really liked it. The background story behind Ange and Charlotte getting switched is awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
And just the way they spun that story, I think it's definitely works. It sounds pretty good. I don't know. It could almost be done cliche, but how most other shows would do it, they would like drag it out forever. You would never really know for sure, but we 100% know that they got switched. And I just wanted to give the show kudos for doing that. Yeah,
for sure. You know what I want to give this show?
I want to guess the whole freaking time.
You want to know what I gave this show kudos for? You know why this is one of the best episodes lately? Because Beatrice only had 4 lines of dialogue the whole episode. And it really, I was like, no, but seriously, like when the show focuses on its good characters, it's good. When it focuses on Beatrice, one of its worst characters, it's not as good. So I don't know, that I just have this vendetta against Beatrice in this show.
You do.
Yeah. But all that being said, I kind of am done with backstory now. Like, I really just want them to move on to like an adventure plot and like what is actually going on in the present and like finish out the show like that. Because we've seen backstory episodes for 8 episodes now, basically. So
I'll agree.
Get to the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last like remaining big twist I could see coming from the show is making it so Princess was actually trying to replace Charlotte the whole time, like even as a little kid. Like maybe like because of a grudge her parents had against the royalty. Because like we find out in the beginning that like the living conditions around like the castle are terrible for people. And like that's why that revolution erupted that separated both of them. And created,
I think that's
like,
just way too elaborate. I don't think that's true.
Yeah, I mean, it probably is. But like if there's one more twist, that would be the one I would expect. That like they seem like really good friends though. Like it would be crazy. But if she was just like a conniving little girl who made her way into the becoming a princess, that's kind of nuts. Anyway, I could see that happening. That's very anime to me.
Well, yeah, but also it was Charlotte's idea, I believe, to switch that day.
That's true.
So that kind of kills that there. If it had been Ange's idea, that would have made more sense.
The other twist could be that they were like literally sisters separated at birth too. I don't know. Since they look so much alike, but
who knows?
See. All right, we can move on.
Okay. We're on the Tuesdays. Restaurant to Another World. Episode 8. Humbug. Steak / assorted cookies. I had to.
Look, if there was a shortage of Hamburg steak, all of the little girls in anime would go hungry. That's all I'm saying.
I just saw this. I was like, I have to do the little lolly voice whenever I read this to Bcom. So this episode gets some mermaids also. And yeah, it's great. It's pretty funny. Black-haired boy named Roque is taken to an island by a blue-haired mermaid named Arte. He was out fishing when he got swept overboard by a storm, and Arte saved him and pushed his boat back to an inhabited island for him. He's very grateful and offers her anything. She quickly replies with 10 silver coins, and he's just like, okay. Yeah. And then curiously, he asks why. She says so she can use it at a place. Which is really interesting to them because I guess mermaid society doesn't have like stores and stuff like that. They do things very differently. So he's like, a place where you spend money, they don't use the concept of money. But she ends up inviting him to go with her in 3 days. She ends up taking him to an uninhabited island. And she transforms her tail into dragon legs by praying to the blue god, which I'm assuming is probably the blue dragon.
She also apparently prays for clothing at that point, too.
Yeah, and it gives her a sash that covers her boobs, because we know from Centaur that, mermaids go topless, okay?
Yep, topless mermaids are back in style this week, guys.
She ends up taking him to the door in the woods, and they enter the restaurant. She just goes ahead and orders for him, and they get 2 demi-glace.
Yeah.
That was a new word for me.
Demi-glace is it's sort of like a sauce. It's I think it's like a reduction sauce or something.
Is it
French
glace
sauce.
or glace?
It's glace is the French pronunciation, so demi-glace.
Okay. Demi-glace Hamburg steaks with rice. In usual fashion, they are blown away and they just scarf the whole thing down. It's really funny when Arte keeps talking with her mouth full because it's so freaking good and stuff like that. It's just funny. She's like, no, just really keep eating. I enjoyed it. Roque orders a second round and says he will pay since she doesn't have enough. And it's a total date with a beautiful mermaid. He's paying for the dinner. Nice. Dude knows what he's doing. That's all I'm saying. And then he asks if she will go with him again, and she agrees. So these two are now a couple going in every day. On to the second part. Our cute little Aletta is arriving at a place looking for a job in her world. And I know you're super happy about this, aren't you, Bcom?
I am, because I was so worried about Aletta because I thought she was still living on the streets, just barely 6 days a week, just living homeless, barely functioning, and then coming back 1 day a week to work at this beautiful restaurant. But you finally find out that's not the case.
Yeah. So she knocks on the door, and to both of their surprise, Sarah Gold answers the door. Also, is she probably your favorite?
She's definitely the cutest girl in the show.
Oh, yeah?
By my standards, yeah.
Okay. And then, they're both surprised. And Sarah, of course, hires her on the spot because she's seen her in her work settings. She's going to be perfectly suited for the job she needs done, which is basically the maid / house sitter when she's out on adventures. They know each other. They, I guess, basically trust each other at this point. So yeah, it's a perfect arrangement. A little too precise maybe, but yeah, it's a perfect arrangement. But then we go back to the restaurant, and Aletta is on her break when she eats some cookies from their break area, because I guess there's a bakery above them called the Flying Puppy, and they just gave them some of the cookies as the samples. You know what businesses do. And she can barely keep herself from eating only just 5 in one sitting. There's then just another quick discussion about Kuro, our black dragon, who is now an elf with black hair, how she uses her telepathy sometimes to talk to everybody, and sometimes Aletta doesn't know if she has taken a customer's order yet or not. But Kuro says she will tell Aletta by telepathy when it comes to orders. So there we go, problem solved. So I guess if somebody thought there was a loophole there, they solved it for you. Mm-hmm. But anyways, Tenshu gives Aletta her pay at the end of the day and a congratulatory gift for finally getting a steady job in the other world. He's like, it's common for us to celebrate stuff like this. And what he gives her is some of the cookies. And what's funny is Tenshu has the foresight to warn her not to eat the silica pellets at the bottom because she wouldn't know what they are.
And it was too late. If you look at her reaction, she definitely ate the silica pellet the first time. And then he reacts to her and he's horrified, oh shit, I told her too late.
No, I missed that entirely.
Yeah, it's a little quick moment. There's no dialogue, but you can tell the last time she got a box, she ate that silica pellet. And she was probably this doesn't taste very good.
Oh, I didn't know that, but that's pretty funny.
It's funny.
It's so funny because that stupid package says do not eat. That's all it says. Oh.
Yeah.
Anyways, back in the other world, Aletta is doing her maid job when Sarah's sister, Shia, arrives. When Aletta answers the door, she immediately notices Aletta's horns. She's stares at him. She's like, okay, half demon. And then we get a little info on the background on their family, Shia's and Sarah's. So she is 5 years younger, and the Gold family operates a large trading company, and they have a curse called William's Fever that causes some members to abandon their posts and seek adventure, usually ending in death.
Yeah. Interesting kind of fever.
Yeah, it's more like a family curse, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. But back to current time, Aletta gives her hack tea and some of her cookies. And you've never heard of hack tea either, have you?
Yeah, I Googled this and I was like, what the hell is hack tea? And then my best guess is that it's like halfway between black tea and herbal tea. So they would call it like hack tea, but I have no idea. But then the tea just looked like green tea. Like it was just literally green on screen. So I was like, I have no idea what this tea is.
Yeah, and then like even Shia describes the tea as being bitter, where I find green tea is nowhere near as bitter as... I don't find tea bitter, but I drink my coffee black, so of course.
Yeah, I don't find green tea to be very bitter either, but some people do. I don't know. Some people have to put sugar in it, so I guess it's like an acquired bitterness taste. I don't know.
Yeah, but anyways, she gave her some of the tea and some of the cookies, and she finds that the bitter tea pairs very well with the sweet cookies, which, yeah, it would. And then she asks Aletta to like buy more cookies next time she can. She gives her a whole gold coin, which is like actually worth like 100 silver. This is a big deal. And she's like, oh, it's just my month's allowance. I'm like, okay. And then it's just kind of funny and actually kind of sweet after credits scene where we see that the a tin of cookies is only 1 silver and a larger tin was 2 silver coins. So that's what she got, a regular tin and a large tin. And then like Shia asks Aletta and her sister Sarah to enjoy the cookies with her. And it's just kind of a neat like little sister thing going on there. But yeah, you get it. It's really cool.
Yeah.
You got any thoughts?
Yeah, there were a couple of like animation like hiccups in this episode. Not like, just like things that were disappointing, because like this is a show all about eating delicious looking food. And like, so I noticed in the scene where Roque in the first part was like cutting into his Hamburg steak, that just like the way that it's animated, the way that it's cut in between different shots is to avoid as much as possible animating the food that's actually on the plate. Because like he'll
do a really good scene where he cut the egg.
Yes.
And like the yolk spilled out.
You're right. So. Yeah, that was the highlight of that scene, was him cutting into the egg, because they actually animated that and the juices flowing out. But like cutting into the steak, they like cut away like once he starts cutting, and then he puts it up to his mouth, and they kind of cut away once he starts, like it just like disappears into his mouth when he starts eating. I don't know, like it could have been done better, but like,
what you want? You wanted to see the chewed up food in his mouth?
No, I want to see him like bite through the steak though, and like I want to see like the steak like. I don't know. There's food shows who have done it better. Like I think Food Wars sometimes does it better, and Gourmet Girl Graffiti has done it way better.
I just want to think that there's not much money behind this show.
I don't think so either. I think it's.
I think they're trying to do the best they can, but there's just not enough money involved to make it really nice.
I also just pointed out this one screenshot where Roque is like sitting on the beach with like the mermaid Arte. And it's like from like a medium distance, so like they didn't like draw their like eyes and like proportions very well. It just looks really dumb. And if you actually go back and watch that scene, like if you look at the ocean coming up the beach, it all comes up in just one horizontal line. There's like no like little eddies or flows or anything. It's kind of it's pretty bad. But anyway, there were just little things that I noticed throughout the episode that were disappointing. But I was really happy to learn that Aletta is doing better in her own world too, which is good. All right, you want to move on to...
we can move... Yeah.
Wait, what is this show? This isn't Convenience Store Boyfriends.
No, I replaced it last week as Tsuredure Children. But
good decision.
Have you been caught up on Convenience Store Boyfriends?
I have not. I did catch up on Tsuredure, though, because I was one episode behind. So
I think we made the better choice.
I gotta watch that now.
It's not bad, but this is the better show. Yes.
Yeah, I was in love with this whole episode, so yeah.
All right. Episode 8, Bruised Up Angel, which is what Crunchyroll listed it as, but if you watch, every time they jump a scene, they give a new title. The Bruised Up Angel was actually the last one, with like the craziest couple of this whole freaking show. Okay, so Kamine is concerned because her boyfriend thinks she is quiet and reserved, when in reality, she wants to be possessive and selfish of him. This is our very adorable blue-haired girl with the ponytail on the one side. Mm-hmm. Gorgeous. She really wants to cuddle and hold on to him, but is afraid he will think of her as a pain. Kamine asks about possessive relationships, and Takuru says those don't last long. They fall apart quickly. Mm-hmm. But things should be done in moderation, like holding hands when walking. Kamine asked, what about sitting and holding hands? And he's like, oh, no, that's fine. And offers her his hand. And she's like blushing super big. Mm-hmm. And she even uses it to like scoot closer to him and then like rest her head on his shoulder. And it's just funny because Takuru thought this whole time she didn't like being clingy. It was like bummed about it, but it was a total opposite. And she's like very relieved when Takuru makes a request. And she's like, what is it? And then he quickly leans in and gives her a kiss. It's fantastic, dude.
And he's just like, I always wanted to do that once. I was like, yes, that's so good.
And then like, she's like, can we do it one more time? Such a cute couple. All these couples. But it's really interesting because they use it as an interesting segue into the next scene for Chiaki to be thinking about. This is a male Chiaki, by the way. Mm-hmm. To be thinking about how he heard that one of his classmates kissed their girlfriend, and he's looking at those two in the classroom just talking. But he makes it at a restaurant with his girlfriend, telling her about it when she says, what about us? And then they do their little like bit thing, and she hounds him about their slow progression in a relationship.
Yeah, the whole bit is in the style of like a soccer match where Chiaki is like a forward on the team who keeps chicking it out and not scoring the goal. That's really funny.
It is really good. But Kana wants him to kiss her, but not if he feels forced to. She like freezes in her position, and she's like pouting to the side, and Chiaki's like, oh man, she wants to kiss. But like, because they're sitting side by side and she's facing away from him, to get to her is a super awkward angle. And then like everybody's also watching in the restaurant, and then like he's slowly getting closer at this messed up angle. He's like elbows on the table, just like bent sideways over. And then she like snaps out of it and turns to like say something to him, but he's right there, and he ends up just like planting a kiss on her nose.
Yeah, and he's like, oh my god, it's the first time I kissed a girl's face.
And they're like, we should try that again. But then like they turn around and see like a couple standing behind them, just staring at them like, what the fuck are you guys doing in public?
Yeah, that was pretty great.
Oh, it is good. All right, our next scene is Ryoko and Akagi,
best couple,
okay, are studying in the library because they goof off too much when they're at home. And I don't think it matters where the hell they are. So Ryoko feels like she is finally getting the hang of English, and like Akagi asks, hey, can I squeeze your boobs as a reward for making you better at English? It's too good. And like, she's like, no, but he's like, if I keep persisting, you will let me.
He's like, you always buckle. Oh yeah, you're about to say that. Sorry.
Yeah, and it's true because she always buckles under the pressure. She just can't handle him. He's just too aggressive for her when she's supposed to be the Yankee character, and he like totally calls her out on all that bullshit. Mm-hmm. He says you're holding back too much, and like opens his arms so they can embrace, and she relents and starts to move in. And just before she gets there, he says, in return, let me squeeze your boobs.
And she's like, no, damn it. And then this is the best part. This is my favorite part. Okay.
Yeah, okay. So then he like lays his arm on the table, and she's like, what? But then he shifts it over in front of her, and then she like aggressively lays her head on his arm because she really was holding back really hard.
She like literally could not stop herself from like putting her head down on his outstretched arm. It was like an automatic reaction.
Yeah, and just resting on it. There was no hesitation. None. Like the moment it hit the table and shifted in front of her, bam, she just like bashes her head into his arm. And then of course he's like, now I get to squeeze your boobs, right? And then she like sits up, she's like, fine, do whatever you want. And he's like, nah, let's get back to studying. She's like, what the hell? And he says, I wanted you to know how much I'm always holding back. This guy, oh my God.
So I fucking love these two because I remember having a girlfriend in high school and we would be studying like in the library or like at my house. And we would always tease each other like this, like all the time. So like not maybe to like the extent where like, oh, I just wanted you to know that like how much I'm holding back, but like stuff like this. And so I got a lot out of this part of the episode. It really brought me back.
Okay, let's move on to the absolute wackiest Animaniacs couple in this whole show. So Kazuko, drill hair, is walking down the street thinking about the last time she met Katori, and she happens to walk right upon him, and he's like laying beat up, lying under a tree. And at first he doesn't recognize her and says to smile for him so he can remember who she is.
He's like, I don't remember all of the faces of all of the girls.
Yeah. And then like she just like really falls for him, and then when she smiles, he does recognize her, and he's like, oh, I just got beaten up because I accidentally met a girl that's already fall in love with me. Mm-hmm. These people are outrageous. He's like, I don't know how to be less popular. And like then they get into this scenario where like she keeps trying to hug him, and it's like this after image Naruto battle of like her hugging him, but then his like image disappears. This couple is just insane.
And he's used this technique before, but this time she catches up to him. She actually like gets onto him. And he's like, "You're a fine leopardess."
It's insane. And then he's like, I can stop you with one finger. And she's like, no, you can't. And he like kisses one finger and blows it at her, and she goes straight down. And it's just like, wow.
This guy is ridiculous. He's too much.
All these episodes are ridiculous, but that couple is just like insanity.
Oh man, I love this episode. I've
loved every episode, honestly.
Yeah, it's super good. Like we've said, it's like the Tsukika Kire shorts, except way better. Like so good. And then like, yeah, in the first scene, I forgot this part that I really liked. So Takeru and Kamine are like getting closer to each other, and like she lays her head on his shoulder, and then he's like, you know, I might smell bad because I just got out of club, but she cuts him off in the middle of that sentence and tells him like, no, I like this smell. And she like blushes a lot. And I like that because a lot of times in like anime or romance stuff, like they don't always focus on like how a person like smells to you. But like there's like a lot of like pheromones and stuff going off all the time. Like people do really get attracted to scent in like real life. So I like that touch, like because that's a thing that usually doesn't come up in like rom-coms and stuff. So
it's kind of hard to I guess probably it's kind of hard just to write about for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, there's like, besides saying like, oh, you smell really nice, like what else do you say? Like I liked how they handled this scene though. That was good.
Yeah, I would like to say though, I've said a couple times, but I just keep reading one novel after the next written by female authors. And one of the things that a lot of them like to do is, even if it's a bad guy, or if it's a best friend or potential lover or anything like that, they like to talk about what the guys smell like, and they'll like basically describe them like a cologne describes itself. Mm-hmm. So I guess that there's kind of a market there for it. It may be more driven towards the female audience, but it can be a thing.
Yeah.
And you got one last... Oh, you talked about that earlier.
Yeah, I already talked about it. Just like, yeah, when he says like, sorry, I don't remember every girl's face, I like died laughing. He's such a player.
Okay, so we can move on to Wednesdays and do some Sakura Quest. Episode 21, The Pixie in the Town of Ice. This show continues to be amazing.
Yeah.
We open up with Erika standing outside in the snow with a bag over her shoulder, and I thought it was a notebook, but it turned out to be a cardboard cutout in her hand. But Shiori, Maki, and Riri are driving in the snow when they stop to pick up a hitchhiker to the station. And as soon as they realize who everybody is, Erika like takes off running, but trips in the snow and falls flat on her face. It's actually kind of funny. Meanwhile, Yoshino and Sane are talking to the board of merchants about the festival they have been trying to restart. Chiaki accepts their proposal, but says they will still need to go around and talk to the other merchants who couldn't make the meeting. Not in my notes here, but something interesting was Yoshino, the way she presents this presentation is definitely way better than she did in earlier episodes. Like, she's learning from her thing. She's going in, she's saying why will be beneficial to the Board of Merchants and the town, and how everybody benefits from this. So that's really cool. This show does such a good job, has been doing such a good job of evolving from, like, she literally she had no idea how to do her job, to now starting to be doing really good from it and learning from her mistakes in the show. It's are you picking up on this also?
You're right. Like, her progression as, like, a capable queen of this town, like, has been really interesting to watch, because, like, but just watching throughout this whole episode, like, she is so much more capable than she was at the beginning. She has such a better understanding of both the town, like the people in it, and how to get things done than she did in the beginning, when it was kind of, like, frustrating to watch as she, like, struggled to, like, come up with ideas and kept failing. But she learned from all that. Yeah,
I mean, and every show kind of does this. Our main protagonist learns from their mistakes, but, like, I think this show's, like, really nailing it, like, very well. Just how they're executing it. But Yoshino and Sane make it back to the cabin, where they see Erika is there because the other girls picked her up as she was trying to hitchhike to Tokyo. And it's funny, we're like, why is she here? And then, like, Riri holds up her cardboard sign that says Tokyo on it. You're like, she was trying to get the hell out of here. But basically, Erika wants to get out of this boring ass town and see other things. Yoshino makes a compromise that she can stay with them for a while and let her know what Tokyo's like before she makes her trip, because she's lived there. Sane is initially from there, and Maki has also lived there also, so she can talk to them and they can let her know what she's like. I mean, otherwise she's going in blind. She has no idea what's going on.
Right.
But next day, I'm sorry, it's later that night. Sane, Shiori, and Ruby go to Angelica's to let her know Erika ran away, but it is now at the dorm with them, and they're, like, hosting her, and she, like, panics. She runs into the back room, and she comes back, and she's like, Erika ran away, and we're like, yeah, we know, we have her at her dorm. It's just cute. I don't know. I just like Angelica's character.
She's pretty great.
It's really funny that I had to rewind and pause immediately to actually read what's on the note. But on the note, it says, I'm ditching this crappy town and heading to Tokyo. Don't come looking for me.
Yeah.
She's almost a cliche thing. But anyways, back at the dorm, Yoshino is relating to Erika because she's also from a nothing town, but wanted to get out and go to the big city. But she just didn't have the guts that Erika did to actually run away and do it. Then the girls come back and explain that Angelica agreed as long as they still send Erika to school. Sounds totally good. But though Sana is kind of worried Erika might leave in the middle of the night, but Maki's like on the couch in her sleeping bag. Like, it just makes me think of like the first episodes where like they walk in, she's in her sleeping bag like a caterpillar in a cocoon. Really liked it. So she can't sneak out without getting past Maki. But Maki takes Erika to school the next day and tells her a story without revealing the ending so that she doesn't ditch school. And she promises her she will tell her when she gets off school the next day. So, But then also Yoshino is troubled because she thinks... Yoshino later on is troubled because she thinks she might be the weird one because everybody around her wanted to at some point in time to leave their town, and she never did. She always wanted to stay. So she kind of thinks about that for a while, and she requests that she goes and picks up Erika after school because she kind of wants to question her about it, kind of understand her thought behind it. Mm-hmm. But of course, Erika is put off because it's not Maki, and she wants to hear the end of that story. Yeah. The reason behind Erika wanting to leave is because she had a dream of being an adult and making curry at the restaurant. And this scared her because it's something she does not want. She really, really wants to get out of this town. So Maki and Riri are at Angelica's later on, talking to her about letting Erika stay with them for now, because if they force her to go back home, she will almost most definitely run off again anyways. So... in a booth, near them, Shinomiya and Takamizawa are also there enjoying some food and beer while talking about how they have been friends since elementary school. It's their day off. They both got the same day off. They're just having fun. And they're like reminiscing about the time they found the shining dragon behind Sakura Pond. And like Maki's like, hey, wait, do you mean the golden dragon? And then like Riri ends up showing them a picture of what it looks like. And they're like, oh yeah, that's it. So yeah, because apparently when the shrine sank. What? This isn't, was it? What's that movie? Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Honey, I Shrunk the Shrine. This is a Japanese
Yeah, I want to go back
version.
and watch that because actually in my head, like it's not CG because it's all like
yeah, the giant props of like bees.
Yeah, that's
and,
awesome. I love that shit.
Like whatever it is, yeah.
But anyways, like when Kadata like attacked the shrine and made it sink on the boat, somebody did save the golden statue, but then shortly afterwards it disappeared, so they don't know what happened to it. But it turns out they ended up burying it in Kaba Park near school. And they buried it because it only grants one wish, and they couldn't decide what to wish for. So they buried it until they could figure it out what they wanted to wish for. They even wrote a secret code so it would take all three of them to find the treasure again. Okay, now wait a fucking minute, okay? All three of them were there as they're burying it.
Yeah.
Why do they need the code?
Yeah, I was confused by this too. I was like, even if they're old and it's been a long time, all three of them were there. So like at least one of them would probably remember like the general location of where they buried it. I don't know.
Right?
But they ripped like this paper of code into three pieces, and then now they don't even remember what the code means like many years later. So they're trying to figure it out basically, and that's where the episode ends.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they could have done different to make that work, but that doesn't work.
Yeah. Like,
but
so
you seem to identify with Erica here.
Yeah, because like she feels trapped in this rural town, and the thing is, like, she's in Japan. They have a train station. Like, her mom could be like, okay, let's take a trip to the city. Let's go to the city for a weekend or something, and like just see what Tokyo is like. But she won't do it. Like, I feel like part of this is on her mom for not like letting her get out and experience like city life and like see what everything's about. And like maybe see some of the bad things about the city too, and why it's nice to be where she is.
I kind of agree, but they do run a restaurant. Yeah, they are the only employees. But even then, surely you can give like a month's advance that they will not be open a certain day.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know. I just feel like you have to make some sacrifices sometimes, like to make your kids happy. And that's one of the things that you have to do is like you have to take your kids places, like let them experience the world so that they don't end up feeling trapped. And it's interesting. I mean, it's interesting, like all the people in the town who have different perspectives on this. Like Riri, who's like curious about the world, but has never thought about really leaving until now. And then like Shiori, who's like literally never thought about leaving home, never wanted to leave home. And she thinks in this episode, maybe I'm the weird one. And yeah, so and then all the Tokyo girls coming out to the country and then finding good things there. So I don't know. It's interesting.
I can relate to, but my story is very different. I did grow up in the country, and I never really. The only time I experienced town is if I went with my mother to the grocery store to get groceries, and that was my experience. Even my elementary school was out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, the closest it was called Myers. It was like a convenience store. Was like 20 minutes away. No, I'm sorry, not 20, like 10 minutes away. And like, I couldn't really, I probably could have biked there, but I didn't. But so like, I had no neighbors. There was one guy who I had to walk 10 minutes to, and we hung out sometimes. We usually just played like horse or something in his backyard. Mm-hmm. But, and my mom always has this funny story how like, my aunt was babysitting me one time. And I came home one day and I was like, you never told me there was a McDonald's. Like I had this was interesting because I had no idea about the outside world. So I didn't crave for it. Mm-hmm. And then when I went on a middle school trip, we went to middle school. Okay. Yes. Middle school. So I'm like, what? 13, 14.
13, 14, yeah.
We went to St. Louis on one of our big trips, and we stopped, and it was probably like a McDonald's or something. I had no idea what a combo was.
Wow, this is crazy to me.
Yeah, no idea what a combo was. My mom always cooked home cooked meals. She's an amazing cook. Like, yeah, my friends would come over. I'm talking about myself. I'm trying not to get there. My friends would come over, and they'd be amazed when they're like, "You have home cooked meals," and they would freaking love it. But anyways, back to what I'm talking about. So I didn't. Even though I was growing up in the country, I was so far detached from like the city that I never craved for it. But like then there wasn't really internet or anything like that. I think when I got into high school, which was high school was in town, I became more familiar with stuff, especially with, I could leave the school for lunches and stuff like that. Internet was starting to be a thing. Cell phones were starting to be a thing. I assimilated very well, obviously, but like, yeah, it's just weird. Like, cause they're in their 20s. By the time I was in my 20s, I'd already moved out and was living in my own. I was actually just roommates with some friends, but now I own my own house. But
yeah,
it's just yeah. My story's very different. Like I could be a totally different character in the show. I can't completely relate with everybody wanting to move around, or even somebody living in the city wanting to move to country. But I honestly moved to the city because I like the convenience. I got Walmart 5 minutes away. My work is literally 3 minutes away. When it used to take me 30 minutes to go to freaking work. Now I'm like 3 minutes. Man, I can take all the time I want in the mornings.
Yeah, and I see it from a little bit of the opposite point of view. I won't go too long, but like I grew up in the suburbs of New York City, but then I had like city experience like very early and like all the time and all this stuff like easily available. But then I would go visit relatives who lived in like rural Pennsylvania. My like great grandmother owned like a huge farm there, and like, yeah, for them, they were like so far away from everything. Like, and I would go visit them and be like, man, this is really cool, but like I can't imagine living this far away from stuff. Like I just can't imagine it because I've never had to do it. Like I didn't have a car, I couldn't drive, so yeah. I don't know, it was interesting.
I was a very bored child. I wandered through the woods a lot. I may have set a pine tree on fire. And let me tell you, they go up quick. Yeah, got in a lot of trouble basically because of boredom. But yeah. I think it's also probably why I like books so much today. Mm-hmm. Because it was really my only release, and probably also why I got into gaming so heavily, because it was either go outside, play with the dogs, walk through the woods, or sit inside and play Super Nintendo or read a book. Yeah, you didn't have cable. We had like this giant satellite dish. It was a piece of shit. But yeah. I did build lots of dams. I don't know why. I'd find a little stream.
I did that too, actually. There was a forest behind my house growing up, and I built a dam in the little stream back there. I remember doing that. And like a bridge to cross it, because you had to like cross it to get to the other side. But yeah.
Did a lot of fishing, even though I don't care for it. But
yeah, me neither.
I had nothing better to do. But let's stop talking about ourselves. Let's go on.
Oh, that was fun. All right. So yeah, these are the things that Sakura Quest makes us think about. That's why it's such a good show. So
signs of a good show, I guess.
Thursdays, we've got Gamers, episode 7, which is called Keita Amano and Karen's Best Entertainment. So the episode starts off with Keita now getting a lot of attention from the guys at school for somehow miraculously scoring Karen as his girlfriend. And Keita tells Tasuku that you're partly to blame for this, but Tasuku says, like, who could have predicted you'd actually go beyond being friends? Like, he never expected what happened at the end of the last episode where he accidentally, like, basically asked her to be his girlfriend. So at this point, Keita thinks to himself, but Karen likes Tasuku. He's thinking this inside his own head, and this makes no sense for Keita to still be thinking at this point. Because, like, Karen literally just agreed to go out with him, yet he still thinks she likes Tasuku and not him. Like, he's so... I don't know. He's so off the reservation. So Tasuku then mumbles something about wondering what to say to Oguri now. because he, after that thing, thinks that like Aguri suspects him, and like he suspects her. They both looked guiltily at each other. So Keita overhears Tasuku saying this, and he's like, well, the guy, and then like Tasuku covers by saying, well, the guy who likes Aguri, the guy Aguri likes is with Karen now. So like he thinks Tasuku thinks Aguri likes Keita, who's with Karen now. But the way that Keita processes that is like the guy Aguri likes, who is Tasuku, is with Karen. So he's like, oh, Tasuku is with Karen. Oh my God. I just wanted to shoot myself in the head. It was so dumb. So anyway, he thinks that it must be easier for Tasuku to cheat with Karen as long as people think that Keita is actually dating Karen. So like Keita is thinking that like Tasuku is basically using him at this point. And he considers like asking Karen if he can take back his confession. But Keita bumps into Karen in the hallway. And right after the scene, and then he just runs away like a coward. And I honestly can't empathize with Keita, even with like all the negative attention he's been getting, because like you have to be prepared for the consequences of actually getting to date the most popular girl in school, in like high school. There will be consequences with that. There will be people who are jealous of you and like want to get back at you. So anyway, he runs into Chiaki though, as he's running down the hall, who beckons him into a classroom, and she's like super confused as well, and they have a conversation where neither of them really understand what the other is saying. But Chiaki is basically telling him that Karen is only dating him to like help him get away from Aguri, who Chiaki thinks is Keita's ex-girlfriend now and like a little she-devil. And Aguri, after that scene, meets with Keita at the cafe again, and she feels she's confirmed that Tasuku is cheating on her now, and because he looked at her guiltily during the confession scene. And Keita comes to the conclusion that Tasuku was only ever using him as a cover to cheat with Karen and Chiaki. And so Aguri asks Keita like what he honestly wants with Karen, and he says he should probably tell her properly so they can break up. But then Aguri tells him like, hey, what's most important to you is how you actually feel. So Keita tells Karen to like meet him up on the rooftop after school or something. And Karen freaks out. She's up on the rooftop first, thinking like maybe his confession was just a mistake, which would make a lot more sense to her since she doesn't think he actually likes her. And then when Keita arrives, Karen turns her back in embarrassment, and Keita asks if like, do you actually hate me? And she turns it around on him, basically predicting that he's only here to take back his confession and that being her girlfriend must have been hell for him. She says like she wasn't really lying, but she got caught up in the moment when she said yes to his confession as well. And then thinks to herself, this isn't what I actually want to be saying, like when she's saying all this stuff. And Keita tells her he's glad that she doesn't seem to hate him, at least. But then surprisingly... you were going to say something? This
kind of turns into, just before the second part of this episode, I know I've been defending it, and at this point, I was like, man, we need to go someplace else with this. Something else needs to happen.
Agreed.
And I'm so glad it then did.
Yeah, I think Karen saves this episode. Because, like, okay, surprisingly, Keita then asks Karen, like, will you go on a date with me then? And she's pretty shocked. And he tells,
but even especially later on, she could have been, like, really shitty about stuff, how they tend to write them. And she's not. She's not.
That's what I'm going to get into. Like, she saves this episode.
Just go. Go, man, go.
he tells her that, like, since they're actually in a relationship, they should go on a date. That's what Keita's saying. And like, even if there will be hardships for them, and even if he's going to probably lose to Tasuku, probably. And Karen hears that, but kind of ignores it, not understanding what the hell he's talking about. And then he then says like, but as a gamer, I think it's wrong to disconnect before knowing who the true winner is. And so that little tidbit
good line, right?
Like hits Karen in the heart, and she loves it as a gamer herself. And she agrees to go on the date. But she tells him, like, don't get ahead of yourself, and, like, they need to follow the proper steps of a relationship. They're not going to move too fast. And he, like, salutes her, and then she salutes him back, like, and, like, dismisses him. That's, like, their relationship now. So, for their date, they go to this, like, multi-level arcade and bowling alley and entertainment complex to hang out.
I would love to go to one of these places.
Yeah, I have one kind of nearby me, which is pretty cool. I've gone there a couple times.
I was getting ready to ask, are these even a thing in America?
Definitely. There's one in New Rochelle, New York, kind of called New Rock City that has a lot of this stuff in it. I don't know if it has bowling, but it has lots of other stuff. I think it probably does have bowling, to be honest. So Karen tells Keita to calm down. And because he's like trying to figure out what they should do with all these cool things, and they just walk around, and they should just walk around and do whatever seems fun, she says. So they do like a little montage of ping pong and darts and pool and bowling, and Keita is like a nervous wreck, but Karen seems to be really enjoying herself. And they're considering what to do next, and Keita is like looking at the like brochure for this place, the map, and he sees something. He quickly covers it up with his hand, but she notices. She's like, "Oh, there's a swimming pool," and he's like, "Oh shit!" And he's like, he basically thinks to himself, "I'm not worthy of seeing Karen in a swimsuit," and he waves his hands about it and says something about like it would be best for humanity if we didn't go. But she blushes and she's like, "You wouldn't want to go on a pool date with me?" And so of course they go to the pool like immediately after she says that. So yeah, when Keita sees Karen in a bikini, he thinks to himself, "I just lost a life." and then instead of complimenting her, he just says like, "Thank you very much," and then bows. It's really funny. And Karen's like, "That's kind of weird." So they see another couple like splashing each other in the pool. And they're like, Karen's like, we should really do this. But she's like, but I need to set some rules for this game. And she lists like these strict turn-based rules for how they're supposed to splash each other and like how they can determine points and all this stuff. And like after reading off all these rules, Keita like just thinks to himself, Karen's kind of a pain in the ass, isn't she? Which I like.
She's just very competitive, man.
Yeah. So they get ready to start splashing each other, and the director decides to give us like these nice long panning shots, like front and back of Karen bending over in her swimsuit. That was a little fan servicey.
Obviously,
yeah.
I was sitting here, and if I had a checklist, I've been like, pool fan service scene. Check.
Yeah.
Move on.
Karen wins the splash battle pretty quickly. They decide to leave the pool because like they look at the other couple who's just being so nonchalant about the splash, and they realize that their game is like pretty nerdy actually. So when they go to leave though, Chiaki shows up in a bikini, and she's getting harassed by two guys, as you often see in anime, who are trying to like strong arm her into hanging out with them. And she sees Keita luckily and like runs to him for help, and like the guys leave like, "Oh, she's with somebody." And Keita like yells at her though, because like she's holding on to him and she's like pressing her bikini into his arm in front of Karen, who is now his girlfriend. And then like Chiaki, who still doesn't understand what's going on, is like, "I'm sorry for interfering in your fake relationship." And so yeah, Chiaki tells Karen and Keita like she came here with her little sister, but they've gotten separated and she needs to go look for her. And then Karen like militaristically orders Keita to go wait in the arcade while she looks for her little sister with Chiaki. And that scene basically goes nowhere. Like the sister just apparently went home, and eventually they just all end up back at the arcade together. They decide to have like a game challenge, which Chiaki tells Keita will make Karen happy, because she's like, it's the least you can do since she's like fake going out with you. And the game they pick is like the arcade version of Mario Kart. So Keita starts off in last place, which if you've played Mario Kart, you will know is probably the best place to start out. And in true Mario Kart fashion, he gets a shitty item, which has a 50-50 chance of either blowing up his own cart or Karen and Chiaki's carts right before the finish line. And the show does like a pretty good job of cutting the scene like of the explosion of that item, and then cutting to the bus home, and Karen's looking away from Keita, and it looks like she might be pissed off, but when she turns around, she's actually laughing because Keita lost. And she's like, she surmises that Keita didn't use that item like he did to win. She thinks that he used it to make the game more fun. But if you look at that scene, like they're all coming to the finish line and Keita is a little bit behind. So his best chance of winning is to use that item. It's a 50-50. And if it works, he blows up the two carts next to him and he wins. If it doesn't work, then he loses. But if he just keeps going, he has like 0% chance of winning there. So like I think that move was a winning move. It just didn't work out that time. So but for whatever reason, Karen thinks it was a fun thing.
Animated like he maybe would have been able to pass them.
Yeah.
You never would have known.
Yeah, it was close enough. I don't know. Maybe I have to go back.
He was rolling the dice without even using the item, but then using the item was still rolling the dice. So
all I know is I would definitely have used that item. Like, if I was trying to win, I would definitely have used it. But so Keita tells Karen that he likes that she doesn't take it easy on him when they compete. And Karen says, like, well, that's the only way I know how to play games. And he tells her, like, yeah, that's what I like about you. And then there's a long pause as she, like, tries to calm down that, like, the guy she's crushing on told her that he likes her. And then he breaks the silence by asking, like, have you played that new Fire Tactics game? Which is clearly like a Fire Emblem reference. And they go back to normal conversation, and it ends there. But yeah, I just want to say, like, thank God for Karen, because without her, this show would be burning in flames right about now, in my opinion. Like, she's true to her emotions. So even if she doesn't fully understand what these crazy people like Keita and Chiaki are thinking around her, she's like willing to tell Keita like what she wants to do and what she really wants, and she can't hide her emotions. So like things end up working out between them because of that. But like Leo said, like the first half of the episode, man, I was just like struggling with like the more confusion and just like these dumb things, people coming to conclusions that didn't make sense to me. But the second half with Keita and Karen's date really pulled it out. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, the second half was just phenomenal, especially when you're comparing it to the first half. But
yeah.
So let's do Fridays.
Okay.
Rage of Bahamut Virgin Soul, episode 19. Shall we dance?
Ooh, yeah.
Just this super quick and then just forgotten scene. Up in the Heavenly Realm, Gabrielle has locked herself away in her chambers because of Elle, Jean, and Lady Sophia's departures. And we don't talk about the rest of the scene.
Yeah. She's depressed, it seems like.
Depressed, yeah. Trying to... Or she's going to turn evil archangel on us. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I kind of got that vibe a little bit.
Yeah, she feels like people have abandoned her. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a possibility. I don't know if it'll happen or not, but we'll see. But anyways, Jean and Sophia seem to be sharing a room together while searching for Elle. Sophia comes back after being out and scouting for a while during the day and tells Jean how she overheard some of the townspeople talking about a red dragon flying over the town that night. Jean then tells her about Nina's secret of being... of the dragon folk, and that she can transform into a red dragon, so it's almost most definitely her. So the two end up deciding to go looking again that night when there will be less soldiers on patrol, so they don't get caught. But Rita comes up with a plan that Nina and Alessandre will infiltrate the palace by going to the ball being held that night. Favreau and Diaz will infiltrate through the barracks, and once Favreau is confirmed inside, Rita will give the signal and Nina will transform into a dragon to cause confusion. In the confusion, Favreau will steal the king's bracelet and then escape on Nina's back. Elle will also be standing by if the Onyx Knights show up, and Azazel will be with him also as extra support. Mm-hmm. So basically, those things begin to happen, but there are a couple funny scenes before the ball actually begins. And then in a quick clip it, once Favreau and Diaz has made it through the barracks and to like the tower that Favreau sneaks into, he predicts that Nina probably won't be able to transform into the dragon form.
Yeah.
He just says his feeling. He knows Nina very well, is what I'm assuming.
Yeah, and I think he knows how she feels about Cherios, which is the most important part. Yeah.
So I think he kind of predicts what happens later on also.
Yeah.
But the first funny scene is when Nina is arm in arm with Alessandre and they're walking up the steps and she trips and she brings both of them down face planting straight into the steps.
She pulls a Jennifer Lawrence. She trips over her dress and face plants.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. And then there's also like a kind of a side scene where like Rita makes a comment that Nina was probably so set on infiltrating because she wants to eat the food. And then that's exactly what she does. She just starts scarfing down all the food and like Alessandre's trying to get her to stop.
And she's like, why? I'm just eating. And he's like, no, you look like a crazy person. He doesn't say that. That's basically what he's acting like.
Yeah. Yeah. But as he's like trying to stop her, like a gentleman comes up and he's like talking to her, and then like Nia introduces herself as Alsan's fiance, and he just like covers his face with both his hands. He's like, oh, good God, what have I gotten myself into? But Cheerio shows up, and the ball begins, and there's people dancing, and there's this line of women waiting for Cheerios to invite them to dance. They're just literally lined up in front of them. They're like kneeled down and stuff like this. Mm-hmm. And she kind of asked Alison, what's going on? And he tells her, and then she just like walks past all of them and straight up to Cheerios, and like to everybody's horror/surprise, invites him to dance. And like, of course, that line of girls is just like pissed looks on their face, and everybody's surprised Cheerios is even going to dance. That was like a big deal.
I also like how that gentleman says to Alison, like, hey, your fiance asked the king to dance, and he's like, oh yeah, that's actually my little sister.
Yeah, he switches it up. So then they do this awesome dancing scene that isn't horrifying like Welcome to the Ballroom's Giraffe Necks. And like, everybody's blown away. And like, but the scene's like actually animated amazingly. You really liked it, right, Bcom?
Yeah, like this is the second of 2 big dance scenes already this season. There was one in episode 6 that I went back and watched after this, and this one like was more of like a ballroom dance. But yeah, it's really better animated than a lot of the stuff that's in Welcome to the Ballroom, which is kind of an indictment of that show for sure.
Yeah, a show not about dancing should not outshine a show about dancing. I mean, that's just obvious. But if anybody watched the first part of Rage of Bahamut, yeah, and this show's got the animation like down pat.
Yep.
So like, everybody's like blown away by their dance. Even the girls that were lined up at the end were just like, holy shit. But Nina and Cheerios end up later on out on the balcony by themselves, where Cheerios declares he cannot see her again ever. And like, she's like, what? And like, she's kind of starting to have a breakdown. But Favreau turns out to have been there this whole breakup scene. And like, he points like a crossbow at him, and he demands the bracelet from Cheerios. But then Nina steps between them, and she kind of says her thing, and Favreau finally relents and puts away his crossbow. And also, this whole time, the people at the party have been watching this whole scene play out through the windows. They couldn't hear anything, but they see basically Cheerios cause Nina to cry for some reason. And then Favreau shows up with a crossbow pointed at him, and then Nina steps between them. And then they see him lower it, and they're just like, what the hell? And then Nina just one last time asks Cheerios if they will ever dance again. He says never, and like, Nina falls to her knees, but Favreau is there to defend her and just fucking one punches Cheerios right in his smug face.
That was good. I liked that.
It was like, he did it, and I just paused it, and I sat there, and I was like, that was satisfying.
I was like, badass Favreau is back. Thank God.
Because I got Nina's back. Favreau, thank you for being there for me. But then the guards like show up, and Favreau ends up throwing out some smoke bombs so they can make their escape. And Rita's like, oh shit, the plan has failed. And Bacchus signals to everybody by emitting like this aurora type light across the sky. Jean and Sophia also see the signal and decide to go towards it. Azazel, Elle, and Alison group up, and as they escape back to the slums, they run into Jean and Sophia. And that's kind of where it stops. Then it goes to an after credits scene where Favreau, Kaiser, and Nina get ambushed by the Onyx Knights. Favreau and Kaiser get captured very quickly, even though like Favreau throws on his smoke bombs again. And then the demon jumps down in front of Nina that they hired to kill her, and he's like, "You will die here."
Yeah.
And yeah, that was a really pretty fun episode. I thought the last episode was really boring. I felt like they were just tying up loose ends just so they can make a better second episode. And I think that's really what they did. Yeah. I'm just glad it's picking back up, especially since it looks like we will start the next episode with like a big action scene or something like that.
For sure. There are a couple little moments I liked at the beginning of this episode. When Rita is like telling everybody her plan, she has like her umbrella, and Rocky, the disembodied hand, is like on the end of the umbrella pointing at people, and it's just really funny. And also Nina, like when listening to the plan, is like Rita's telling her like you get to change into a dragon, and she's like, do I get to smash things? And I was like, Nina, calm down. It was really funny.
Yeah, there's a bunch of little snippets here and there. Mm-hmm. They did a good job of interjecting with the comedy bits.
Yeah.
So
I was trying to like think if like, so there's that part where Favreau is like, Nina gets in front of Cherios, right? And Favreau is pointing his like gun or whatever at both of them. And he's like, what if I shoot through you and shoot him? And to me, I was wondering if he was thinking about his decision with Amara at the end of the last show, where he had to decide whether he could kill her or not. Like, I don't think he could ever bring himself to kill Nina this time around, like because of what he went through with Amara. So there was a little bit of that behind that scene, in my opinion. But yeah.
Oh yeah, you're thinking pretty deep, but that sounds pretty correct.
Yeah. All right. Want to move on to the next one?
So, okay. Let's do Main Abyss, Episode 8, Survival Training, which I just listened to our last episode earlier today, and it's so funny how we joked about how long the survival training would go, and we had lots of predictions. One of our predictions was half an episode. It was maybe a quarter of an episode.
Yeah, it was way shorter. Like, they sped through the days for sure.
Yeah, I was like, wow, we just really increased this pace. But anyways, Regu and Rico first start their survival training by looking for water, but get immediately distracted by a purple glow. The glow is from these water bugs called Rohanas that only live in clean water. So that's cool. They found clean water. And Rico like takes her like helmet off, and she's like scooping up some of the water. And then you see the bugs part in the middle as like a shadow comes up from underneath, and out pops like the ugliest hippo I've ever seen. And it comes out of the water, and it's trying to chomp on Rico, but Regu kind of noticed what was happening beforehand and like throws his arms out and grabs her and pulls her away in time. And then the hippo just kind of goes back into the water.
Yeah.
And in real life, I guess hippos are like super, super aggressive and like will just fuck your world up.
Super dangerous. Like they will kill a human. Yeah.
Yeah. So they end up building a little hut and light a fire. And Rico says they will be okay since the animals around here will be sensitive to the light because they're away from the center. So there's not much light. But then like all the bugs become attracted to the fire, and they and they're like, oh shit. So they decide to go like find some plant that will repel the bugs. And then they just jump straight to day 3. And we get to see Ozen and then one of the old men from her little crew observing the two. Then we just jump straight to day 5. Like, yeah, they're flying through this. The two start devising a plan to take down the hippo. The plan is to use a female hippo dung to lure it and then blind it with their glowstones. And, well, the plan works. With Rego like using his arms to bind it up against a tree limb and stuff like that. Then we then go to Ozen gets a flashback of Liza coming to her aid when she got attacked by some punks. It's strange. And then there's another where she is out drinking, where Liza's out drinking Ozen, and she's excited like about. And then they go on to another one where like she's excited about this huge field of white flowers and stuff like that. They're like down in like sector 4 or whatever it is. But we then also get like, I guess, a more important longer scene where it's right after Rico's birth, and Liza, like her husband just died. She just gave birth to a stillborn, and she just has to lay down. And then like Ozen walks out of like the little cave and whatnot, and she decides to leave that white cube behind that the stillborn child is in. As soon as she starts to walk away, she hears baby noise coming from within, and she's like, what? And she turns around and looks at it, and it's kind of into that. And then we just go straight to after 10 days. Maruruk spots Regu and Rico walking back to the camp, a little beaten up and tired, obviously, but still very much alive. Maruruk greets them and gets them settled back in the room, and she kind of leaves. He kind of leaves. And Rico passes out, and Regu like kind of puts on his helmet that activates that pearl emblem again that we saw in an earlier episode. But it quickly fades, and we learn nothing new about that, which is killing me. But then Maruk returns again and says, "Hey, Master thinks we should all have dinner together." And Ririko immediately wakes up from sleeping and yells, "Food!" Loved it.
Gohan?
Yeah, that like she passes out from exhaustion as soon as someone mentioned food. She fucking woke up. But during their dinner, Ozen informs him that basically the next thing is just Ozen coming completely clean. It's really cool. Ozen informs him that how time can be very different when you get to even lower levels. For instance, one time it felt like only a couple of weeks when she was like in like, I think layer 5 or stuff. But when she returned to the surface world, it had actually been a couple months. Her point being that since this concept is proven true, when they descend to the 6th and 7th layers, it may not feel like all that much time has passed for Liza if she's actually waiting down there. It's been 10 years on the surface, but only a couple years for Liza, possibly. So that's really cool.
It's a little bit like reverse Inception. Like, because Inception at the lower levels of the dream, like, feels like you're spending a ton of time down there, but when you come back up, it's been like, 5 minutes or something like that. So it's like the reverse of that. But time is actually going by still too.
But then there's like this like kind of funny scene where like Rigo is so happy that Ozen is now suggesting Liza is alive that she tries to hug her, and Ozen just like smacks her in the forehead for it. Like, don't even try.
Ozen is not a hugger.
No, definitely. So Ozen also warns them that not to stay too long in the 5th layer since other white whistles might be there to discover them. Mm-hmm. She goes on to list them. First on the list, the Sovereign of Guidance, Wakuna the Chosen. Then the Sovereign of Mystery, Shirajo the Mysterious. And then third, the Sovereign of Dawn, Bondrewd the Novelle.
This is like Dark Souls bosses or something. Totally is.
We should ask our friend Chibi Rob.
Especially Bondrewd. He even looks like a Dark Souls character.
They all do. Come on.
Yeah, it's true. They really all do.
Honestly, now that you say that, I feel like the creators definitely took some inspiration from Dark Souls.
Could be.
It makes sense. Yeah, but she even says like Bondrewd is an outright scoundrel and not nice like she is. Fucking lost it. And then like even what's his little machine guy's name?
Regu.
Regu is like, are you joking?
Are you joking? You're the nice one, please.
You're the nice one? Yeah, I just completely lost it. But Ozen does have one thing she is curious about. She wonders who wrote that letter, since she knows that it isn't Liza's handwriting. And she's also particularly curious because the penmanship is a very odd fashion. Like, she's not familiar with it. It comes from someplace else. And also what's written on isn't even paper. She can't even rip it herself.
And this is Ozen we're talking about, who's super strong. Yeah,
the strongest out of everybody. So... yeah. What is really waiting at the bottom of this abyss? That's crazy. Mm-hmm. So as a parting gift, Ozen gifts them Blaze Reap, the everlasting pickaxe.
That is a badass pickaxe name, I just want to say. Blaze
Reap? Yeah.
That's pretty sick. Like, I could see that in a video game.
It turns out it's a weapon Liza used, and it probably only has a couple of uses left in it since it is in like really bad shape, but the inner core like gunpowder works good. Mm-hmm. And she's like, she's probably already found a stronger weapon by now. And also Ozen also gives him information that is only shared with other white whistles. Things like there's a cryptic device for traversing the 5th layer seas, and also how a white whistle's timbre acts as a key to activate certain relics. And there's also a mysterious ring in the 7th layer that only a few have seen. Yeah. And then we just kind of but we get to the end where there's a quick scene of Liza telling Ozen to Rico that if she ever makes it deep enough to her to tell her everything we know she just did, this episode. I'm sorry. There was a flashback scene where Liza wanted Ozen to tell Rico about everything that she's told her this scene. Man, I worded that.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I get it.
Wrong. Yeah. And then we also get to see Liza's face, which is supposed to be a big reveal, which is whatever. She's blonde hair, blue eyes.
Looks like Rico. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, go figure. And then the final scene of Regu and Rico makes their departure and is standing at the edge of the third layer called the Great Vault. Which,
if I remember correctly, is like a rock wall that just goes down for like 1,000 feet or something. That's just like a straight vertical drop. So they'll have to like spelunk down it, basically.
That's what it looked like.
Mm-hmm. I like this episode because we got a lot of more lore that I found interesting about where they're going next.
A ton of lore. Which is why I got very specific at certain parts. I was like, shit, also, I got to put this in here.
Have you watched Hunter 2011 yet? That long show, like the shonen show with Gone Freaks is the main character, like the spiky hair.
I have watched. It's in my Crunchyroll queue. I am up to episode 62 of Hunter x Hunter and never watched any farther.
Okay, so yeah, you will still understand this because like they lay out in like the first couple episodes the relationship between Gon, the main character, and his father Jing Freaks, who is a hunter who has left home and gone off to adventure. And like Gon's whole thing is like he wants to understand like what led his father to want to become a hunter and like where he is, and he wants to find him. And I couldn't help but be like reminded of that because of the lore behind like Liza and Rico's like mother-daughter relationship. Like Rico is a lot like the Gon to Liza's Jing. Liza is like this ultra talented, white whistle, basically a hunter who has gone to this like fantasy land deep in the abyss, and Rico has to like go on journeys to catch up with her. And I think in the same way with Hunter x Hunter, like Rico may find that her mother is maybe not a great person, like, but like at the same time they share that same spirit of adventure. So they're very similar to each other. I don't know. I was thinking about that throughout this episode because of the similarities.
It is very similar.
Yeah. Also, I was annoyed at the first like a minute and 45 seconds of the episode because it was just a repeat of the last scene from last episode. But whatever.
I don't know why so many shows do that.
Yeah, it's typically with shonen shows, which is why I was disappointed with it in this. Like, I would expect that in like My Hero Academia or something, but with this, I was kind of annoyed because it's like, okay, we saw all of this like last week. We don't need to see it again. We remember.
Well, you need to be reminded, Bcom.
Yeah, I guess so. Just went on too long. But any other thoughts on Made in Abyss? It's getting interesting. They're going to start moving on now, which I'm happy about.
Finally.
At least it didn't go like 3 episodes for those 10 days. That would have been a nightmare.
Hey, they didn't talk about stringing up naked children in this episode, so.
Yeah.
Pretty happy about that.
I liked that scene with the hippo. Like before it comes out of that little pond, there's like the little like dragonfly like bugs or whatever like flying over
water bugs,
with like the pink lights, and that was all pretty cool.
Purple.
That looked really good. Yeah
I like that too.
All right, let's move on to something clearly less weird. The next episode of 18 If, which is called Threshold. All right, I'm gonna try and decipher this show. I don't think it's as confusing as the last one, but still pretty much.
It's way better than the last one. I still hate the last one. Even after listening to us debate it earlier today, still dislike the last episode a lot.
I like it, but it was weird as hell and way up to interpretation what was happening. This one is a little bit more straightforward. So the show starts off, and it's in a black and white art style. Kind of like they're trapped inside of a manga is what I was getting from it. And Haruto is there. He's talking to this like punk rock looking girl, and she's like flying after Haruto, and like she like pierces him in the heart with like a spear basically or something. It seemed like a psychic attack because like
it was like a spear from her voice.
Yes, that's definitely probably what it was, because he uses the same sort of attack back on her. But when he attacks her, she changes and looks like a completely different woman, like a woman with brown hair and like a long dress gown. And she's pierced through the middle of her body like many times. And like when Haruto sees this, he like tears up at what he's done. And then there's a title drop for the episode, and then it's called Threshold. So anyway, after the title, a vinyl record starts playing at this bar called Succubus. And the bartender looks to me like the punk rock girl from before, but I think that was sort of just a coincidence. And we re-enter the black and white manga-like dream to find that like when either of the characters speak to each other, either Haruto or the punk rock girl, the subtitles for what they're saying like flow out of their mouths and onto like the background, which is very interesting. We don't quite understand why that's happening until later. The woman is frustrated about some sort of team that she works with and being held back by them as the leader is what she's talking about. And she isn't getting through what she's saying to Haruto, so she like pierces him through the heart again. And Haruto is about to try to make her face her own shortcomings and be like, hey, like, what about you? But Katsumi appears in his cat form in the dream and stops him. And so Haruto like walks off. He's frustrated and he's got his headphones on. They're blaring some kind of like lo-fi post-punk music, and he's walking through this weird dream where there's like floating dragons that look like piñatas, and there's crawling bugs over his foot, and a truck slams into a car, and the car slams into Haruto and knocks him into the air. And as he's flying through the air, he sees that woman with long brown hair, who the punk rock girl turned into previously. So Haruto then starts thinking, and he has these brief flashbacks of, I think, his own life, where he's being bullied by little kids, and then like he's like these high school aged friends, like, or maybe not even friends, are just telling him like, oh, like don't hang out with us. And then two people who look like his parents, like abstractly telling him that like, we thought you were smarter than that. And like he like finishes that dream, and then he imagines he's drowning in an ocean because of it. And luckily Katsumi is there, and he has a submarine, and he rescues Haruto. And when he comes to, he's surrounded by like these beautiful waterfalls that are like glittering with like lights. And the brown-haired woman comes up to him, and she asks like, are you all right? But everything she says sounds muted and distant, like he can't hear her really. And so he's confused by this, and he runs away. And you see the woman move her hair behind her ear, and she has a hearing aid in her ear. So that's interesting. So anyway, Katsumi asks Haruto about like these two different witches who have appeared in the dream. The punk girl and the brown-haired girl. And he tells Haruto like, hey, that cocky punk girl may be more at the end of her rope than she seems. And that if Haruto can't hear the brown-haired woman, they might need to find some other way to communicate. So anyway, Katsumi goes in real life to visit this bartender and asks about Haruto not being able to converse with someone inside the dream, which is interesting because this means like the bartender understands this like traveling into dream stuff, which is weird. Her theory is that the dream is a world of thought, and maybe Haruto's thoughts and these women's thoughts are on completely different wavelengths, and so like he just can't hear her. Katsumi then sees a woman sitting at the bar next to him who has that like brown hair like the girl from the dream, and she brushes her hair back over her ear and reveals a hearing aid. So he follows her from the bar, and she goes into a building like downstairs underneath, and he sees a poster for a band called Deaf Vocal, and he stumbles downstairs into her concert, and there's a different woman who's on stage, and she's singing at the head of a band, and there's like an audience, and she's using sign language to sign every word that she's singing because the people in the audience, many of them are deaf. There's also a blonde woman who comes out on stage who looks unmistakably like the punk rock girl from the dream. But I also think she is just the brown-haired woman in a blonde wig. This is her persona when she performs on stage. And she doesn't really sing. She just signs the words, and like the audience like cheers for her because that's how she performs. After the performance, she falls. Oh, sorry. Yeah. We then see a montage of the brown-haired girl living her everyday life as a deaf person, and how like she's very capable, but she also feels separated from the rest of society because of this, because of the things that she misses that other people are able to catch up on because they hear that. She falls into a dream where her cell phone is blaring an emergency message, and like there's this brief little shot of like aliens coming to attack and like firing lasers. And it buries her apartment in rubble. And then she goes back into the black and
dream.
Wait, what'd you say?
She fell into a dream?
Okay, so I don't know if that part is a dream or not.
I don't think it is.
Well, the aliens certainly are. Like the UFOs that are firing lasers, like that. I think that's a metaphor for something that might have really happened. Like I think she could very much in real life have been trapped in an emergency where her apartment got
that's what I'm getting at. It's like, okay,
yeah.
I feel like at the end she was definitely trapped under rubble.
Yeah.
Because Haruto mentions it at some point or something like that. So
yeah, well, when she goes into the black and white dream, which is definitely a dream after that sequence, and she's like yelling at Haruto, like, I'm trapped under rubble. I haven't been able to get out for a week. They haven't been able to find me. And that felt like a moment of actual like clarity of her saying like what's really happening to her in the real world. But she realizes she's in a dream and that's pointless. And she starts talking about how she can speak freely in the dream. Like Haruto's like, are you deaf? And she's like, yes, I am. But I can speak freely in here. And I can also understand what everybody's saying because like when people speak, like the word bubbles like float out of their mouths. And like she doesn't even have to read lips. She can just hear and see what people are saying. And she tells Haruto that she starts sort of like analyzing him, and she's like, I know that you don't truly want to wake up from this dream either. And he denies it and says like he'll wake up and do all the things he wants to do soon in the real world. But when she asks him like, what are those things that you really want to do? He's kind of at a loss for words. It also turns out that Haruto can hear what she's saying in the dream. Like Katsumi can't hear her though. So she explains that people subconsciously only hear the things that they want to hear. And she tells Haruto he wasn't able to hear her other voice either. So this is the punk rock girl saying like, you weren't able to hear like my brown haired persona in this world. And the reason that like he couldn't hear it is because like she's giving advice that he doesn't want to listen to. Like there's like advice being given to him about like being courageous and like surviving on your own in a world that like you don't really fit in. And like he doesn't want to take that advice to heart because, as we know from watching this whole show, Haruto is also trapped in a dream, and like he needs to help himself as well. Where is it? As the two continue to speak, it develops into like these two separate scenes. Like one is in the black and white dream with Haruto speaking with the punk rock persona of the woman, and then there's one in color where he's speaking with the brown-haired girl and he's starting to understand what she's saying. And they both are explaining to him that if he can't help himself, that's why there are others in the dream world. There's other people who can help him. Even other aspects of his own self, it seems, because it seems like there's a Haruto who's in the black and white and there's a Haruto who's in the color, and they need to kind of merge together. So the woman explains that she just wants to be able to act and watch movies with subtitles and walk the runway and do everything that she can and is capable of doing. And Katsumi tells Haruto that like by opening up his ears and listening for the voice of somebody who is different, it gives his own life a new color and like meaning. And there's this really cool shot of Haruto's world turning to color through this like rectangle zoom in and zoom out transition effect. And at the end of the transition, he's back by the waterfalls and the soundstage is way broader. He hears everything now. He hears like the birds chirping. He hears the wind blowing through the trees. He hears the waterfall. And he can like, truly hear the whole world around him. And the punk rock girl yells that she's like glad she met him, and she disappears and like phases into the brown haired girl. And then the dream collapses. And in the end, Katsumi quotes this American psychologist named Dr. Albert Mehrabian, who says that like the input we receive from communication with others is like 55% facial expressions, 38% vocal pitch, loudness, and speed. And that the meaning of the words spoken are just 7% of the input we get from communication.
I've heard this before.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So back at the bar, the bartender makes a metaphor of not being able to hear communication as if it was a vinyl record that plays outside the hearing range of human ears. And then Katsumi picks up a guitar, which he's been wanting to play ever since he saw the concert. And he starts tuning it with like the amp on. He gets yelled at for like tuning like an out of tune guitar. She's like, don't play it like until like we don't turn the amp on until you get it in tune. And he's like, well, I need to hear it to start tuning it. And he's like, just as humans need to produce the sound from their hearts in order to start tuning themselves. And he's like, and sometimes we have to like turn down the interference as well. And so he uses a guitar pedal known as like a nose gate or a threshold, which is like the title of this episode, in order to like block out all the interference from the amp. And it's just like, yeah, it's just a really interesting metaphor for like how humans have to like listen to like what they truly believe and block out the bullshit that gets in the way and just be themselves. And like, yeah, it was an interesting episode of like what it's like to be deaf and what that experience is like and how Haruto can relate to that experience because of whatever he's gone through. So it's cool to start learning about him.
Yeah. I thought it was a really great episode. I just really wanted to know if she got out of the rubble, maybe possibly at the end. They didn't do like her awakening like they have done in previous episodes.
Yeah.
But I'm also super happy we started to explore what the deal is with Haruto.
Mm-hmm.
But episode 7, I want to make a correction because you said Haruto and Katsumi had went to the Crazy Girls hospital.
Yeah.
They did not. I just rewatched it now.
Okay, where did they go?
They didn't go. They were talking to themselves in the world, and it transitions to another scene of the girl waking up, just listening to the Wizard of Oz tape and wanting to meet the other guys.
I was certain that Haruto opened a door and saw the guy saying extra in the hallway.
No, he opens the door and talks to Katsumi going, is that all right that works? And then it cuts quickly to another scene of the kid running down the hallway throwing that.
Oh, okay. I thought those scenes were connected for whatever reason.
Because like when you told me that last time, I was like way confused because Hatsune, or whatever his name is, has not been in the real world. He, especially from this episode.
Oh, that's a good point. He wouldn't show up in the real world. That's a good point.
He's been in the dream world the entire time.
Yeah. Oh, that's weird. Yeah, so I messed that up. Oh, well.
Who cares? Yeah,
that last episode 7 was like so hard to
7 was just insane.
To try to understand like everything that was happening there was like ridiculous. So yeah.
All right. How about some explosion heroin cheerfruits?
I'm still enjoying the show way too much.
I hated this last episode.
So
I have no interest in this show. That's why.
Yeah.
It's just
which I totally understand. I'm not really fully sure why I like it so much. Like there's some borderline stuff that I really didn't like in this episode.
You're secretly a lolicon.
No, definitely not. So Mikon, who is a girl who hasn't gotten much attention since like the early episodes, even though she's like presumably one of the very main characters. She's like the group's writer now, right? And she's dealing with some writer's block because they're planning out the next performance and she doesn't know how to write her own character anymore. Like in Misaki and Roko are talking to each other and they're wondering if Mikon like just doesn't know how she fits into the group exactly, since like other people have taken her original spot. And like as the yellow cheerfruit, like she looks online and looks at discussion of people talking about her character and they're just like confused about like what she really does too. So anyway, Mikon tells the girls to like she calls them all together to tell them that like she can't get the script right. Like no matter what she does, she's written so many drafts. And she's like, as a solution, we should all go to the beach. Since it's summer vacation and like a change of pace might help her.
That surprised me, actually. So
I was like, oh God, beach episode. So
oh, they were very good about it, though.
Yeah, it was not exactly a beach episode. Maybe
one scene,
yeah,
but it wasn't the beach scene. So
Yeah, as of course, as is the case with a lot of these idol girl shows, one of the girls in the group is really rich and has a beach house that they can use. So that's Hatsuri Momoi, the little pink-haired girl in this case. So they're going to take a train to go to the beach house. So I expected this episode to play out like any normal beach episode, but it doesn't. They get on the train to go. They're waiting for people. One of them notes that Hatsuri looks like an elementary schooler dressed up in overalls. And I was like, okay, I know she looks like an elementary schooler show. You don't have to tell me. I've got news for you. Most of the girls in this show look like elementary schoolers who just had breasts tacked onto them. So yeah, Mikan is taking pictures of the girls like the whole train ride. And I assume this is to get inspiration from them later. And the girls pass the time by playing like Old Maid with a deck of Cheerfruits cards that Genki and Mana designed themselves, which is kind of fun. But where this episode changes completely is the train starts moving into this like huge thunderstorm. It's like a huge rainstorm, lots of lightning. Shimura, the drill hair girl, is like really scared of thunder and grabs onto like whoever's sitting next to her for comfort. And there's also a train car full of nursery school students who are next to them, and they're like crying, like because they're like their teachers are trying to calm them down, but it's like a really scary storm for these little kids. Eventually, the train is forced to stop because a lightning bolt hits a tree in front of them and makes it fall on the tracks, and so they have to wait for it to be cleared. The girls can tell that like the nursery school teachers are overwhelmed at the moment and need help like reassuring these kids. And this is where Mikan, who's been like really lacking confidence for this whole episode until now, jumps into action. And luckily, all of these kids are fans of their Hina Nectar like Cheerfruits group. And like meeting them like really cheers them up. And Mikan creates this like off-the-cuff storyline about like the lightning storm and tells them if they all sing songs together, it will make the evil storm and the evil weather go away. And there's this really funny montage after that where the girls start performing the song, but in the audio of the track, the kids are singing along, and the kids are the worst singers. They're so bad. They're all out of tune, but it's really hilarious to hear them like singing along with the professionals. And it's kind of like moving too, because it's like, oh, they're having fun, you know? They let kids like sing on this track, even if they are really terrible. So eventually the railway is cleared, and they all get to the station where they're going to, and the kids wave goodbye. And as soon as they leave, like, and the girls get on like a bus to go to where they need to go to, Mikan's like, I can't believe I did all that. She's like really embarrassed, but the other girls are like, yeah, you get like pretty confident like when you don't think about it. So they get to Hatsuri's house, and they want to play as soon as they arrive, but Misaki forces them to practice, and they're like really drop dead tired, so they eat, and then they head to the baths. So there's a bath scene in this episode, but in a very rare occurrence, the show actually uses a bath scene to propel the plot, which is very rare. This scene uses a conversation about how Mikan has like bigger breasts than you would expect, because like she talks about how like in fourth grade they started growing and she got a lot of unwanted attention and stuff, and like it's like something that she's had trouble accepting about herself. And Genki even tells her this. She's like, so that's how it is with you, like you have trouble accepting yourself, like, and you've always had trouble accepting yourself and who you are, which plays into how she's lacking confidence in her own position in the Cheerfruits. So Mikan thinks she sees Yuki after dinner and goes to talk to her because, like, in the bath scene earlier, Yuki, who is Genki's younger sister, was helping Genki get up out of the bath because, you know, she's in a wheelchair usually, and she has like that disabled state, like with her legs. And so
they've never said exactly what is going on.
Yeah, that's why I just stumbled over my words. It's like I don't remember exactly what's wrong with her. Like they don't say.
She just has weak, like something wrong with her spinal cord, so she has weak control of her legs.
Something like that.
I'm assuming something.
Yeah, so Mikan thinks it's Yuki sitting there, and she's like, "Oh, things must be tough for you, like taking care of your sister all the time." But then she realizes it was just actually the sister, Genki, with her glasses off, who's like, yeah, she puts her glasses back on. She's like, yeah, I think I'm probably a burden to my family for sure, but I still want to go out and do all the things that I'm capable of doing to like the best of my ability. And like Mikan's like kind of horrified that she said this to Genki, but she gets the message. The next day, Misaki shows Mikan like some of the pictures that she snuck of Mikan the day before, like helping the kids on the train, like jumping up high and like being really like a leader. And the rest of the girls gather around and tell her, like, just talk to us anytime like you're worried about something. You're too reserved. And Genki tells her that like your natural strong point is, as embarrassed as she is to say it, is that you have that pure cuteness factor, which is funny. So that night, because of all this encouragement, Mikan can't sleep. And she's just really excited to write something. So she ends up writing the newest draft of the script overnight and even going to like a local convenience store to print it all out. She goes for a walk, and like while the other girls are reading it the next morning, and she's really worried, she's really nervous that her enthusiasm won't come through, and she returns and she's really scared, and the girls like put down the scripts like slowly, and they just all look at her, and they like burst out into cheers, and they're like, yeah, we loved it, it was so good. And they even decide that Mikan will get to co-MC the next performance. And she's really nervous, but Misaki points to the kids who are in the crowd, and she's like, it's just like that thunderstorm, like. And Mikan gets determined and reads a ridiculous tongue twister to get the audience hyped up. And now, for a special reading of that tongue twister, our very own Leo will perform it for you.
Should I do it in our native tongue, or
just do your best?
Okay, I'll do it in theirs. No. Okay, Tokyo, Tokyo, Kyoka, Kyocho, Kyoko, Kyoka. Butcher the shit out of this thing. Kyoka, Kyohai, Aka, Aburi, Kalbi, Ao, Oburi, Kalbi, King, Aburi, Kalbi. Yeah. Fucking butchered that shit. And if you actually want to know what they said, it was the Tokyo Special patent permission directory hastily denied my request for a day off today. Red roasted beef ribs, blue roasted beef ribs, yellow roasted beef ribs.
All right, I need to try this. I need to try this too.
Go for it.
All right. Tokyo, Kyoka, Kyoku, oh damn it, Kyoku, Kyuka, Kyoka, Kyoki. Aka aburi kalbi, ao aburi kalbi, kin aburi kalbi. Woo! How'd I do? That's what she yells at the end too. She's like, how'd I do? Oh man, that's really hard. So yeah.
There's so many KYs in there, it's insane. There should be more lube.
I was like horrified when they started off the bath scene, because I was like, oh no, show, don't do this to me. Don't ruin it with
It did a huge lingering shot on her underboobs.
Yes, it did. But it was plot relevant.
So that makes it okay, I guess?
That's how I'm justifying it. Because like in this rare occurrence, it was actually relevant to the rest of the episode in a way that is like, okay, it's still sleazy, but it is actually relevant to her like confidence in the way that she is not confident in her body and herself. She's not comfortable with herself, and she needs to learn to be comfortable with who she is. So in that way, I liked it, and I thought it was better than your average bullshit fan service scene in a bath. So it's still a bath scene, but it was a little bit better done than most of them.
Yeah, and like you said, like it actually led to a point of her problems. So
yep.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, they actually used it to their advantage, not just to be pure fan service. At least some of it was about the actual story. So
yeah, and there wasn't like a bunch of like the girls like grabbing onto each other and hugging each other and grabbing each other's boobs and stuff like that. Like there always
like,
is.
I want to feel your boobies.
Yeah, it's like, oh my god, I need to feel these. And there's like two guys in the other bath across the way, like, oh, I can hear everything they're doing. It's not like that. It's like a chill bath scene. They're all really tired and they're all just like enjoying the bath. And then there's this conversation about Mikan, which is plot relevant to the rest of the episode. So yeah, I thought it was better than average. That's why. So anyway, I'm still enjoying the show. It's very cute. So you said that you hated the whole train scene.
I hate it. Well, I love storms. I love anything that weather-wise. Mm-hmm. So like thunderstorms and like all the kids fucking freaking out and crying, and then like the teachers can't get them in control. Well, the main point being like you they're acting concerned themselves. You don't act concerned. You act confident. Mm-hmm. That's how you get little children under control. And also, me in that situation would have been plastered to the window, watching the lightning and listening for the thunder and just loving it.
That's true. So, even as a little kid, I was always fascinated with lightning and thunder too.
Yes, I was the same way. So like, I'm just watching this. I'm just like, it was weird. A mob mentality with the little kids, which it makes sense how it worked. But then like the two elder people that were like watching them like did a shit job of it. And I was just like, I don't like little kids, but you guys are doing an asshole job in this.
Well, that's funny. Yeah, I kind of agree. They didn't do the best job. Thank God for the cheer fruits. Am I right? They came to save the day.
Yeah, sure. I wish you would have dropped your show.
So that's it for this week. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe to us on YouTube to get updates on the... Oh, and follow us on Twitter to get new updates on the new podcasts or new videos. And our Twitter account is at Nerdom and Other. So yeah, that's it for this week. We will see you next time. Wubba lubba dub dub! Peace.